Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive, where we take a deep dive into a specific source. And today, we're diving into
Ooh, a book.
a book, Ethics, Law, and Technology Adoption, Navigating Technology Adoption Challenges by Stephen A. Wright.
Catchy title.
Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know. But don't worry, we're going to break it down for you. It's all about figuring out the ethical and legal stuff that comes with pretty much every new gadget or software or, anything new tech these days.
Yeah, it's like we all get these shiny new toys, but nobody tells us how to use them responsibly.
Exactly. And that's what Wright's book is all about. He starts by asking a really simple question. Why should we even care about ethics when it comes to technology?
Hmm.
I mean, most of the time we're just excited about the new features, right?
Yeah, like when smartphones first came out, remember it was all about apps and being connected 24/7? Did we stop to think about what that would do to our privacy or our attention spans?
Not really. We were
Yeah.
too busy playing Angry Birds.
Exactly. And the book does a great job of pointing out those potential downsides of new tech, like how things can get more complex, how people resist change, and even the unintended consequences that we never see coming, like social media, connecting people globally, but also spreading misinformation like wildfire.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure.
And that's where ethics comes in. It's not about rejecting technology altogether. It's
Yeah.
about using it thoughtfully and responsibly. Wright calls it navigating the double-edged sword. I love that metaphor.
It's a good one. So it's not about being anti-tech, it's about being pro-ethics. Got it. But how do we even start doing that?
Well, that's where the book introduces the idea of ethical frameworks. Think of them like tools for analyzing and resolving those tough ethical dilemmas.
Like a moral compass for the tech world.
Exactly. He presents three main frameworks that can really help us make sense of these complex issues. Have you ever used ethical frameworks before?
I've dabbled, but I'm definitely not an expert.
No.
So break it down for us. What are these frameworks all about?
All right, so the first one is consequentialism. It's all about focusing on the outcomes of our actions. The ends justify the means kind of thinking.
Interesting.
The most famous example of consequentialism is utilitarianism.
Utilitarianism.
Yeah, the idea is to aim for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Like, think about self-driving cars. A consequentialist might argue that the potential to save lives through increased road safety outweighs the risk of the occasional accident, because overall, more lives are safe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like
It's like weighing the potential benefits against the potential harms and seeing which side comes out on top.
Exactly. Now, the second framework is called deontic ethics, and this one focuses on moral rules and duties regardless of the consequences.
So even if breaking a rule might lead to a seemingly better outcome, you still shouldn't break it.
Exactly. It's about sticking to your principles no matter what, like those universal moral principles we all know: do not lie, do not steal. It's about upholding those regardless of the specific situation.
So even if a little white lie could prevent someone from getting hurt, a deontic thinker would say, nope, lying is wrong, period.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. It's about sticking to your moral code no matter what.
I see. Okay, so we've got consequentialism focusing on outcomes and deontic ethics focusing on moral rules.
Yeah.
What's the third framework?
The third one is virtue ethics, and this one emphasizes character traits over specific actions. So it's about cultivating virtues like honesty, compassion, and courage.
So instead of asking, what's the right thing to do, you're asking, what kind of person do I want to be?
Exactly. And then letting that guide your actions. The book is this great example. Imagine you're a software developer working on a facial recognition app. A virtue ethics approach would encourage you to consider not only the technical stuff, but also the potential impact on privacy and justice. And then you'd strive to develop software that aligns with those values.
I like that. It's about taking a step back and considering the bigger picture.
Exactly. And Wright argues that these frameworks can help us navigate those tricky ethical dilemmas that pop up with new technology.
Okay, so we've got these frameworks, these different lenses to look through.
Mhm.
But how do we actually apply them when new technologies are emerging all the time?
Well, the book delves into the technology adoption process itself, and it's not as simple as just clicking download like we usually do.
I know, right? I'm guilty of that.
Ray breaks it down into stages, starting with awareness. You become aware of some new technology through an ad or word of mouth.
And then you get interested and start reading about it.
Right. Then
Yeah.
you enter the evaluation stage where you weigh the pros and cons, maybe try it out with a free trial.
And if you like it, you adopt it. You fully integrate it into your life or your work.
And then finally it spreads to others. That's diffusion. The technology becomes more widespread.
Okay, I see how that process works. But how do ethical considerations come into play at each stage?
Well, at the evaluation stage, for example, you might consider the potential societal impacts of the technology.
Like, will it create jobs or lead to job displacement?
Exactly. Or does it have environmental implications? It's not just about whether it's cool or useful for you personally. It's about looking at the bigger picture.
Right. It's about thinking beyond our own immediate needs and desires.
And at the adoption stage, we might ask ourselves, are we supporting companies that align with our values? Or are we contributing to problems like data privacy violations or the spread of misinformation?
It's like we're voting with our dollars and our data every time we choose to use a new technology.
Exactly. It highlights the importance of being an informed and engaged consumer of technology.
I agree. But I have to admit, sometimes I encounter a new technology and I just feel lost. Like there's no clear playbook for making ethical decisions in these uncharted waters. Do you ever feel that way?
Absolutely. Especially with how fast technology evolves,
Mm.
what seemed ethically sound a few years ago might raise serious concerns today.
Yeah, it's like the rules are constantly changing.
But the book offers some guidance for navigating these unfamiliar situations.
Okay, I'm all ears. What does Wright suggest?
Well, he talks about the importance of personal and shared experiences. What have we learned from our own encounters with technology? What can we learn from others who faced similar dilemmas?
So it's about tapping into our collective wisdom, not trying to figure everything out on our own.
Right. He also encourages us to look at existing legal frameworks, even if they don't always provide perfect answers.
Because the law often struggles to keep pace with technological change.
Exactly. But even imperfect laws can offer valuable insights. And of course, he reminds us of those ethical frameworks we talked about earlier: consequentialism, deontic ethics, virtue ethics. Those are our tools for analyzing the situation and making informed decisions.
So it's like having a toolkit with different instruments for approaching these ethical dilemmas.
Precisely. And he stresses that ethical decision making is a process, not a one time event. It's about gathering information, weighing different factors, and being open to different perspectives.
This sounds like a pretty nuanced approach, but a necessary one in our tech-driven world.
It definitely is. And from there, the book gets even more specific. Wright dives into particular technology sectors and the unique ethical challenges they each present.
Okay, now we're getting to the real meat of the book.
Yeah.
Give us some examples. What sectors does he cover?
Well, he starts with software development, which is a great place to begin because it's the foundation for so much of our technology.
Right, software is everywhere.
And he talks about how software developers have a huge responsibility to consider user privacy, data security, and the potential for bias in algorithms.
That's a big one. Are we collecting more data than we need? Are our algorithms discriminating against certain groups of people?
Those are some of the big questions being wrestled with right now. And the book doesn't shy away from the complexity. Then he moves on to biotech and drug development, which is a whole other can of worms, ethically speaking.
For sure. Like, what are the implications of gene editing? How do we ensure that clinical trials are ethical? How do we balance innovation with patient safety?
Big questions. And the book doesn't offer easy answers, but it gives us a framework for thinking through these challenges.
Okay, so we've got software biotech. What else is on Wright's list of ethically challenging sectors?
Well, one of the hottest topics right now is AI and robotics.
I was hoping you'd say that. Yeah. Everyone's talking about AI these days, but not always about the ethical implications. What kind of stuff does he cover there?
He tackles the big ones, like job displacement as automation increases, and the potential for robots to cause harm either through accidents or misuse, and even the question of robot rights, which might sound crazy, but it's becoming more relevant as AI gets more sophisticated.
Robot rights. That's getting deep. I can see how this book would be useful for anyone working in AI or robotics. What other sectors does he discuss?
He touches on cybersecurity, highlighting the tension between security and privacy.
Like how much surveillance is okay in the name of national security?
Yeah.
Or what are the ethics of hacking, even if it's done with good intentions?
Right. Those are tough questions. And then he dedicates a whole section to fintech, the intersection of finance and technology.
Fintech. That's a buzzword I hear all the time. What are the ethical considerations in that space?
Well, he talks about financial inclusion, making sure new financial technologies are accessible and equitable, and data privacy in financial transactions, and the use of AI in financial decision making. It's about making sure these new technologies aren't being used to exploit vulnerable populations.
Yeah, that's crucial. We need to make sure technology is being used to benefit everyone, not just a select few.
Exactly. It's about thinking critically about how these technologies are impacting our financial systems and our lives.
It sounds like this book covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
But all of these sectors are developing so quickly, it's hard to imagine how the law can keep up. Does Wright address that challenge?
He absolutely does. There's a whole section dedicated to it, the law, playing catch up with technology.
Well, that title pretty much sums it up. What are some of the specific legal challenges he highlights?
He talks about how existing property laws are struggling to adapt to digital assets. Like, what does ownership even mean in the digital world? Who owns a digital photo or a piece of virtual real estate?
Good questions. I've never really thought about it that way. And what about privacy laws? How are they holding up in the age of big data?
That's another huge area of concern. As tech companies collect more and more data about our online activities, how do we balance individual privacy with innovation? It's tricky.
It feels like we need a whole new legal vocabulary to deal with these issues.
Maybe we do. But in the meantime, Wright stresses the importance of dialogue and collaboration between lawmakers, technologists, and ethicists. He argues that we need to move beyond what he calls ethics washing.
Ethics washing, what's that?
It's basically when companies make superficial ethical claims without any real commitment to ethical practices. It's like talking the talk but not walking the walk.
So it's about looking beyond the PR and
Uh,
marketing and seeing if a company's actions actually align with their stated values.
Exactly. It's about looking for real substance, not just empty promises.
Okay, so how do we move beyond ethics washing? How do we get to genuine ethical engagement with technology?
That's the million-dollar question. And the book doesn't offer any easy answers, but it encourages us to ask hard questions, to hold companies accountable, and to demand more transparency. It's about being informed and engaged citizens in this technological world.
It sounds like it's going to take a collective effort to push for more ethical tech development.
It absolutely will. But I think the book gives us hope that it's possible. And that's what makes it so valuable. It's not just a doom and gloom scenario. It's a call to action. It's a roadmap for a better future.
That's a great note to end on. So I think we've covered a lot of ground here, but we've only just scratched the surface of this fascinating book.
There's so much more to explore.
We've talked about ethical frameworks, the technology adoption process, the legal challenges, the importance of moving beyond ethics washing, and we've even touched on some of the specific ethical dilemmas facing different tech sectors. But there's still so much more to unpack.
In the next part of our deep dive, we're going to dig deeper into Wright's insights on individual responsibility.
And how we can all play a role in shaping a more ethical tech future.
We'll also explore some practical strategies for promoting ethical tech development in our own lives and in the world around us.
So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into ethics, law, and technology adoption, where we'll continue to explore the complex and ever-evolving relationship between technology and ethics.
We'll be right back after a short break.